Okay. Peace. Today is June 20, 2020. In last minute, I invited English-speaking friends, and next Sunday, I will have also with the Turkish friends meeting. The purpose is different. The purpose of my meeting with the Turkish friends will be directly uh, aimed to discuss a new constitution for Turkey. I know it is a big idea, but I think there are many people, intellectuals in Turkey, and people, activists, and who care about the country. They know that the constitution in Turkey is very backward and oppressive, and therefore it needs to change. And the opposition parties, unfortunately, they don't have the vision. Therefore, I decided after discussing the issue with many different friends to come up with a cross section, invite almost everyone who have certain knowledge and experience in the subject, but regardless of their religion, their color, and their tribe, regardless of those things. Therefore, I think we are, there are fake walls between us, superficial walls created by the rulers to divide us, to put us against each other. And because of these walls, we are alienated, we are divided, and sometimes we are put at fight, at war. While we are fighting with each other, they indulge in their greed and exploitation and manipulation and shedding blood. Therefore, I invited everyone, and of course, everyone is a big word, but of course, we will have some selection, but the selection will not be based on whether they agree with me or not, whether they are the same tribe or not, whether they share the same theological idea or not. It is only based on whether they are honest people or not, whether they can listen and think and argue the issues based on evidence, whether they care about freedom, social and economic justice, and peace in the world. And I don't expect them to be angels. I'm not an angel, but I expect them, their goodness will be more than their bad deeds. And therefore, it might, I know that some of you may see me as a Pollyanna, but I am an optimist. I think there are in history the most difficult times, the most painful times, or the darkest times could be pregnant to light. And I see throughout history, you see, when everyone give up, there is a hope. And the hope is obvious to me regarding not only Turkey or every country. Forgive me, I will about maybe 5-10 minutes have this introduction to be all on the same page. We may have differences. I welcome the differences. And therefore, this is also for all around the world. Most of our problems are man-made problems. And man is a human-made, but unfortunately, it is also mostly male-made problems. Women's contribution is less than men's contribution. Don't perceive it as a sexist approach, but this is just a clear observation, factual observation. Most of our problems, it is not natural. Even pandemics, there is human contribution to it in many ways, which in one of my videos about COVID-19, I discussed. I listed those things, that how we contribute into this pandemic and what lessons we should take. Major throughout history harm to humanity comes from two sources, and it's no brainer to see them. Two evil. One is religion, the other is nationalism. When I say religion, it is, of course, I mean polytheism, the religion that turn people human, uh, that who are equal to each other, born equal to each other, that create classes of people and make some people, give them power to subjugate others. And religion is used, polytheistic religion is used to turn people to stupid people, to make them betray their reason, and to make them betray their human honor. Instead of submitting to their creator alone, they submit themselves, subjugate themselves to arrogant religious leaders, political leaders, who are mostly sociopaths and corrupt. And therefore, throughout history, we see a lot of painful wars, and not only wars among tribes and nations, and also within the family, conflict and oppression, suppression in the family, in the neighborhood, and in the city, and in worldwide, we see caused by these religious virus, which is propagated by evil, by Satan, we call it Satan, invisible and visible Satan, the source of evil. And the other is nationalism, tribalism in the past. Later it was camouflaged, modernized as nationalism. And we know that how religious dogmas were responsible from the wars of the past, especially in medieval times, of course, from ancient. And we see also nationalism is responsible for the biggest bloodshed in the last century and still continues. Basically, the religion is replaced by nationalistic dogmas. And the holy book is replaced by flag. In the past, holy books would be, or symbols like cross, like crescent would be waved, and people would go crazy and would go kill their brothers and sisters in other parts of this world. And now the flags are waved. When flags are waved, people do not think. Mostly, they just ready to go kill people who are pointed at, who are shown as enemy, and they go. And usually in these both cases, in religious and nationalistic exploitation, manipulation, and wars, you see the children of the poor people are used to kill or to exploit, to oppress the children of other poor people. And the rich and the spoiled leaders, elite, they enjoy, both in wars and peacetime, they enjoy their plunder and their wealth. And therefore, we need to transcend these borders created between us and among us that divide us. We need to come together, regardless our colors, our race, regardless our religion or theology, and we should come to common denominator. The common denominator is we live in this small planet, and it is so small that what goes around comes around much faster. Therefore, a pandemic in other part of the world, it is your pandemic. A conflict, racial conflict in part of the world or religious conflict is your problem because it turns to you as the so-called terrorist organization. And polluting the air, polluting the water, polluting the land is no more local problem. It comes back to you as climate change, as major natural disasters. By the way, I'm not reading. It may sound reading. I don't want you to put in sleep. I'm just talking. I want to finish it in 5 minutes and then we discuss. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, let's not be megalomaniac. Let's not think that we can change the world because we are big people, but let not also undermine ourselves. Perhaps we have much more leverage and power than we think. And throughout history, and I don't believe that majority of people have an impact on the history. Majority of people throughout history, even now in democracies, more or less, their percentage may change. But the majority of people in every country are sheep. Let me say it again, are sheep. They are herded, they don't think, they don't care, and they are very selfish about their own lives. And when a powerful tyrant comes, they will be the first one who will be applauding and supporting that. If that tyrant is toppled, they will be the one running, cheering for the next tyrant. Therefore, the majority of people in democracies, they are herds. They are not the one who determine the governments, the system. Democracy is kind of glamorized, but I'm not glamoring. I don't have much expectation in terms of majority of people. But I do think democracy is the best of all possible methods how we can live together. And what happens, let me tell you, very important point. What changes the governments in countries are not the majority of voters. It is the minorities. In tyranny is the same. In tyrannies, minorities take power by force, but in democracy, minorities dance according to some rules, and then they dance, they compete with each other, and then one of them wins to be the shepherd of the herd. I know this may be considered as demeaning the people, but I am ready to argue based on fact that majority of people are sheep. Knowing this fact, knowing that minorities, well-organized minorities, strategically thinking minorities, can win the majority. The shepherds that have momentum, that have optimism, the shepherds have certain focus, they may change the direction of the majority. And of course, majority of these minorities, unfortunately, they may be noxious minorities. They may be very selfish, tribal, and very greedy. And when they get into power, they may want all for themselves and deprive the rest. And we see in the United States, a minority of people, they enjoy the resources of the United States with incredible injustice. Three person, just individual, imagine, three individuals have more wealth than 150 million of Americans. Therefore, saying America is a great nation is a very false statement. It's not. If people are not great, the individual citizens are not great. If 150 million of them equal only to three people, there is something wrong about that country. Of course, about other countries are not, some countries may be in better situation, few exceptions, but most of the countries are in the same shape. But of course, we have good things about this country. I enjoy many of the blessings, but also we have a lot of negative stuff that we witness. Therefore, we need to come together and try to find common denominator. I am not here to discuss with anyone our differences. I don't want to focus on our differences. Let me check whether other people waiting. Anyone? Sometimes there are people waiting. Okay. So far we have 18, 19 people. Okay. Again, I had this announcement pretty last minute. And hopefully next week we may change the time if a better time we decide. And we want to continue these and make it not only this circle, create circles that people like us will come together. We need to transcend the borders, not only religious borders, also our national borders to make a change, because I don't think that locally we can change our governments, which are hijacked either by tyrants or by big corporations who are merciless. Therefore, in order to, because they are also transnational corporations, they are huge. They control the media, they control many institutions. And therefore, in order to make a change, be able to change our country, we cannot really think and act locally. We have to think and act at the same time universally, globally. And this is an invitation, and I am not a megalomaniac. I don't have any expectation from this in terms of uh, politics or economics, but I do think that throughout history, there are movements start with few people. If they are the right people and they are focused, they have good intention and good knowledge, and they may change the course of history. Of course, it may turn back again. I want to stop here. I would like to welcome every one of you. And I would like to remind everyone, if you come here, please write your name and preferably last name and even the country. I wish that I had put the country, but that's okay. Without country, it's fine. And I would like to welcome two of my friends because of them, I put together this group, and God willing, we'll have much better participation. Matthew Capiello is a medical doctor from California, and Ruby Amatullah, she was a businesswoman in America, in the United States, but now she's in Bangladesh. We have been thinking about to come together. Their suggestion was Muslims, American Muslims, we need to come together. But I have hesitation regarding to limit ourselves with the word Muslim, with the connotation goes to Sunni and Shiite sectarian. But I would like to call it peacemakers. Anyone who is peacemaker may not share the same belief like we do, may not even believe in God. That's fine, because what we are talking, we can discuss philosophy. I am ready to discuss with any atheist, with any Sunni or Hindu polytheist, no problem. But here it is not that meeting. The meeting is we live in this small planet, we share the same air, we breathe the same air, we fight the same viruses. Therefore, we need to find the common denominator and create a better world. Our world is going to a wrong direction, and therefore, this is about that. Thank you very much, people. I welcome anyone would like to talk, please. I asked a question a moment ago, whether you are able to share, raise your hand, or if it is too crowded, maybe there will be difficulty to have a talk one by one. It's up to you. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, Matthew. Go ahead, please.
Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is Matthew Capiello. I'm a physician out of California and a human rights activist. I've been working with mass popular movements for about 10 years at this point, including the Occupy movement, people from the Arab Spring, etc. And this is clearly a pretty important time for mass popular movements. Black Lives Matter's anti-police brutality stuff caught on pretty strongly. And both myself as well as my colleague Ruby think that this is probably the beginning of an era similar to the 1960s. There's a lot of anger towards the dominance of elites in global governance. There's a lot of anger over special interests in general getting in the way of popular democracy. And it doesn't look like things are going to get better anytime soon for global democracy. So now is a great time for popular mobilization. It's similar to the beginning of the 60s. So the question is where to go from here. Black Lives Matter did a lot specifically for police brutality and for anti-racism. But the question is how to sustain that momentum in the coming, 2 or 3 years. It's well known that when neoliberal politicians like Joe Biden get elected, that could potentially lead to a downswing in momentum for popular movements. However, it could also lead to an upswing and increased protest mobilization if Black Lives Matter expanded its goals to also include anti-militarism and anti-authoritarianism abroad. Obviously, police brutality is a concept that's well known to individuals in the Middle East and North Africa suffering under dictatorships, under Egypt, under Erdogan, under Assad, under many other autocrats. And it's possible, in the next few years that the kind of anti-militarism protests that Black Lives Matter is doing, it's possible that could be pushed even further into a global movement. So that's what myself and Ruby are thinking about right now. Hey, Edip, is Ruby unmuted? Have you muted everybody?
I don't think so. I think Ruby is able to talk if she raises. Okay.
She's muted. She's muted, Edip. Can you
really?
unmute her?
Oh. How can I unmute? Okay,
well, I did unmute, but I don't know whether it is working. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
But both of you are not using videos. You participated through video. Yes, go ahead, please.
No, I'm not using video because I was almost sleeping. It is midnight. It's odd time. It is odd time for me, but and I generally don't like videos in a conference. But
okay,
anyway, my name is Ruby Amatullah. I am a writer and businesswoman and all that. But more important is that at time right now, I think that America is a country where major change comes from mass movement like this. The mass movement, as we say that Vietnam War was not ended. Vietnam War didn't end in Vietnam. It was ended on the streets of America. And because, not only that, the whole tide of Washington changed because of that movement, with the nuclear freeze movement and all other movements that convinced Nixon to actually reach out to the Soviet Union, stop Cold War and start diplomacy with the other side. These were radical changes that took place because people, as I sense, that people gave the signal that that's what we want. We do not want war. We want diplomacy. We want to work with Soviet Union and China. And that's what Nixon picked up. And he did a marvelous job on that, even though I don't like him. But right now, the question is that this mass movement, how best can we utilize it? Black Lives Matter is a very narrow objective. With that objective, the main changes in government will not take place. As I see it, is that there will be legislation, there will be some changes to show the movement that things are happening, and government does that. And then when the movement dies, they are trying to kill the movement. And I think eventually they will be successful unless it is broadened, unless it has more fundamental issues. I mean, Black Lives Matter is a fundamental issue, but it has a cause. Black Lives Matter, racism takes place in bad governance. In good governance, racism doesn't take place. So how do you turn a bad government that has been going on for decades now, into a good governance? How do you do that? Right now, it is so corrupt and so far away, so much eaten up by the elite control and special vested interests, pro-Israeli groups, and transnational elite, global elites of all sorts, that everybody has lobby in Washington. That's their home right now. Wherever they are in the world, but their home is Washington. And they are trying to control a piece of Congress, except the American people. So my bottom line is that we as American Muslims, can we come up with a proposal and reach that proposal to the decision maker, the movement decision makers, or the top leaders, and say that Muslim Americans, these will be signed by prominent Muslim Americans, I hope, but we have to come up with a concrete proposal that that unless you broaden up your horizon and unless you take partners, this movement will have very difficult time, because this kind of movement can be killed with some changes, showing some hope. People discouraged, Biden gets elected, people are going to say, oh, okay, everything is done. But Biden is not the end. The main thing is Biden is the beginning. And in order to get something very concrete, very substantial done after in the post-Biden era, we need to think about using this movement. Once this movement dies, it is extremely difficult to create a movement like that. So my reason for joining the conversation, as I expressed earlier with Edip and Matthew, is that as a Muslim, we can go with American citizens as a citizen, but I'm saying that we are Muslims. Can we make a proposal, and can we come up with a proposal? And there are some issues. First of all, there were a few issues that we're thinking about. Is campaign financing law changed? We are thinking about global police brutalities in other countries. Stop supporting repressive governments that are actually instrumental behind police brutalities all over the world, particularly in the developing world, and that kind of thing. And these are all related issues. And then gradually, maybe we can bring it to more fundamental things as campaign financing and repealing 1996 Telecommunication Act, which has handed over the media ownership to a limited hands to control American media. Right now, 6 mega corporations are controlling total American media. And it used to be 50, now reduced to 6. And they are all pro-Israeli, and they are all pro-elite. And so they will let public know what they want public to know. Public will never know the real things, and that's why they don't know the real things. Can we do something about it? So anyways, a lot of issues, but these are my ideas that I'm sharing with you right now. I may not survive very long right now. I may have to go to bed soon.
Thank you very much, Ruby. I would like to keep this meeting for 1 hour because I will also share it through YouTube.
It's half an hour gone.
Tens of
Okay.
thousands of people will watch it, and will from this will hear this start, and therefore don't just think that it will be limited here. Therefore, I don't want to exceed 1 hour. It is psychologically, when it's more than an hour, it looks too long, and therefore I would like to give everyone a chance to have maybe we have what 20 minutes left, but maybe 1.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes introduction and talk on the subject matter, and later we'll have a lot of chance to hear everyone. Yes, here right now, just tell what subject. What do you say?
Yes, can I answer to Ruby, please?
Please don't exceed the 1 or 1.5 minutes, because everyone chance.
Okay. Okay, it is possible. So, Ruby, the idea of a proposal is very good because we need something new to say. And what you said is true. All media are controlled by pro-Israeli groups. And the big problem is that those people are very, very powerful. But they also made some errors, some crimes, and some big stuff. And we need to highlight what they made, what crimes they made clearly. And the crimes that they made, I made enough investigation for 17 years, something like that. And I can say you that the attacks of 9/11 were ordered by Netanyahu personally when he became for the first time prime minister in 1997. And the PNAC designed the scenario of the attacks and mixed it with Mossad agents, Israeli, US Zionists, and people who used by the PNAC made the attacks. That's, I am the only person among the truthers who says it, and I am not a truther for such conspiracy theorists. I left all those groups because they are making completely deception in order to create very confusion, huge confusion, and nobody understand what happened. So if we can, okay, I go. If we can blame these powerful persons, then huge things can change. But to be able to blame them, you need to bring very strong information. And this strong information, I gave it in my small website, www.peace911.org. I will stop here. I let you watch these because...
What? You misspelled it. What did you spell it? No one can...
peace for Barış in Turkey. P-E... Yes, go on. Peace911.org.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mehmet. This is a controversial claim, theory, or speculation. I think that you should be talking with people who reject this and discuss it. And I don't want to honestly spend our time indulging on this. This is, I think, I want to focus on obvious crimes, on obvious wrong things. If you go in that route, the other side has a lot to say, and then you will end up labeled as a conspiracist, and then you will lose your power, or the power of work. I do understand you are passionate about this.
No, I am not passionate. I am not. I am not also in conspiracy theories. No, it is not a passion. It is not a passion. I made investigation.
You might even be right. Listen to me carefully. You might.
No, I am right.
Right. Okay, you are right. Let's say right. You are even maybe right, You're right.
Edip,
But still, I do think, right,
Edip,
we are not going to discuss this theory. Okay? That's it.
If you stop, if you reject the main issue that can be proposed and can destroy these injustices, these war criminals, these completely all what happening, most of those things is coming from there. If you reject it, you will turn around because you don't have other solution.
Against you sharing this with the people. Absolutely, go ahead. It is your privilege, your things. You are right. Even if you are right, I do think that it is not the route we should take. This is my idea. We can discuss why it is not the route we should take. And go ahead, Ruby.
If I am right, why should you reject this
Because
solution?
it will not change anything. Because we still
You don't know.
Because it will not change anything.
Yes, Ruby. Yes, Ruby.
Can I, I'm sorry to say something. No, he is absolutely right. And you can find these informations, not today, but for 100 years. But the Israeli issue, we are not talking about today. It is not going to be effective at this stage. First, we have to come together with the movement that has started. We want to make it bigger, and we want to make it forceful, and we want to make it longer. Because it will be very difficult to keep this kind of movement for a long time. And I'm saying that different issues broadening the issues will make the umbrella bigger, and more people will be on the street if the issues are. The first step I'm talking about, and pro-Israeli thing, I've been writing about Israel-Palestine for some time now. But I'm talking about, that's my heart, but I'm talking about that's not the thing that we need to talk about, deal with right now. If we do, we are not going to go any place. So let's take it as a step number 2 or 3 or something like that. Step 1 is how we can approach this movement, how we can be accepted, and what kind of proposal are we giving to the movement decision makers? Because unless and until we are in their fold, we are nowhere. We can talk until we are blue, and we are not going to do anything.
Mashallah. Here it is. I want to be really more specific. Mehmet, please don't misunderstand me. I am not, the reason is many people will not be able to be moved by this. For many people, it is an obscure speculation. You may convince many people, but they will be few. But when I tell a person, gentlemen, ladies, look at the banking law, they can rob you legally. Like a few years ago when I checked, 3 banks alone, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Chase, they made $7 billion from one item alone. That item is overdraft charge. Overdraft charge is on the poorest people. Now ask people, how many of you charge $35 because you made a mistake or you needed to drink water, you exceeded $1 or 35 cents, 30 cents on your banking, and you were charged $35, and then 1 week or 2 weeks later, salary went to the bank, they got the money they lended you, $1, and they charged you $35. It is a robbery, and these $7 billion went up to the richest people. Therefore, I can say there is something robbery going on around. This is just one of many, many examples. These people can relate to this one. There is something wrong with our system. We need to change it. Therefore, I understand you can argue, but I don't think this is the one will move people, will change anything. In fact, it will make it muddy. Many people will label you as a conspiracist, though you might be telling the truth. But also, if you want to do something,
you misunderstood. Yes, you misunderstood.
Can we stick to some rule about 1 minute call?
Go ahead.
Yes. More people to participate.
I'm not going to talk anymore. Go ahead.
Can I just give you an answer for less than 1 minute, some seconds?
Please.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You have
Thanks. The problem here is that the conspiracy theorists are agents of these so powerful Israeli lobby, and they are there to create confusion and to prevent anybody to go in this way. Then one second, I do not ask to have 100 people, huge movement. What we need to do for that is just some people who need to go to meet the victims of these attacks, and the victims of these attacks will do the job. Do you understand what I mean? We are not going to
Thank you.
make
That's good.
things change.
That's
They
good.
should do it, and only some people are needed. Thanks.
You're welcome, Mehmet. I think that's a good strategy. If it,
Edip, can I just make one point, please?
Go ahead.
I've only joined recently. My name is Tanveer, but I'm ringing from Manchester in the UK. I am very new to this group, but one of the things I find difficult is that we don't really have a focus here. I mean, there are many, many issues in the world we can talk about, whether it's corrupt governments, whether it's corrupt religions, whether it's, Israeli policies or whatever. I think the thing is, we have to decide what this group is about, not so much where all the problems are. There are many, many problems in the world, from environment to whatever. But the issue here is one of identifying who we are and what are we going to do about it. I think you touched on this, Edip. There's an issue at the moment, and I'm not sure what the answer is. If you align yourself as a religious group of Muslims, you have a problem of baggage of what all that is associated with Muslim and Islam. And it's very difficult to dissociate yourself from that. You know, most of your enemies would be amongst the Muslims, you know, the sort of Muslim that we're talking about. There is the other issue that if you then align yourself to another focus issue, whether it's peace in politics, it sounds like, I mean, I like, you know, the idea of being called peacemaker rather than Muslim, but once again, it looks as if it's about, you know, a Pacific group that is talking about anti-war or something, you know, those kind of groups. On the other hand, if you then emphasize the environment, then you are in danger of becoming the environmentalist green kind of group. So I think right now, it would be good for us to contemplate what it is that we want to represent before we even think about jumping on movements or bandwagons, because lots of people can do that. So I'm going to stop here.
Yes, may just quickly say, I think that there are many peacemakers. I think peace is related to many of these problems, that there cannot be peace without justice, without climate, without respecting the world. And I think that we need to unify. There are many groups like us. We need to create unity, international unity among these local groups. That I think can do some change. Yes, go ahead, Ruby.
No, I think this discussion is too diffused, and Edip, you are going also on a big spectrum of things, and I don't think that that's what I intended to discuss. My intention is that how to get involved with this movement, and I am using a platform of American Muslims or Muslims in that sense that I believe that Muslims can make a very progressive statement and progressive proposal to the mainstream. I proposed that during Iraq war, and the Muslim community backed off. And I know why, because they were scared. And I don't think there is anything to be scared of. So we can make a proposal, but we need to be precise what is going to be effective. We need to stay on the point. And the point is that what will be acceptable right now by this movement to include our proposal. And that proposal has to have very concrete, like global brutality, global repressive governments that America support. I think we can really tie those issues with this BLM movement. They might, because BLM actually is global right now, and global society is responding to their call. So this is an amazing thing. It never happened like this before. Today is a global society. So I think that we need to concentrate how we can include global movement and what are the issues we can bring on the table that will be connected by everybody. And I think that we should stay with the points of reform and the points of how to be connected and how to be accepted by this movement. Be specific, Edip.
Do you have a website, Ruby? Can you give your website name in case you have some articles there?
Letter to America. You know that. You have
Are there hyphens? For those people watching this.
Letter-to-America.
Aha, hyphenated, okay. Letter-to-America.org or .com?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's be precise on that. And there are a lot of injustices, that's true. And Israel is the root of all evils. But let's talk about what we can do in concrete, where we can make some progresses.
Okay, anyone else? It is really, I don't have much expectation in this first meeting. We'll have different ideas, but we see, we agree on most of the problems. We may come up with nothing, or we can come up with some great ideas. Go ahead, please. Anyone would like to?
For me, one possibility is to defend justice. I mean, if we have justice, we will have peace. So our movement's big slogan, big proposal could be actual justice for everybody.
Okay.
No?
Welcome, Altay. He's my friend from Turkey. He's a medical doctor. He's also a political analyst and thinker. And Nejefi, I would like to hear you too, and other people, please feel free to join us.
Hello.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you. Thank you for setting up
this.
Your
patience.
Welcome. Just a couple of small notes. On your introduction, you mentioned that majority of people are sheeps, and I would like to refer it as followers, although just give them some credibility to the human being that they all have some sort of intelligence to some extent, God-given intelligence, but they are being blindly following some corrupt leaders, or they are lazy to do research and find out how corrupt the leaders are. And partly because psychologically, every human being on earth, they're being obscured. Their level of intelligence is being taken away from them by the religious leaders, by the politicians, and so forth. So we should give some level of credibility to some followers. Yes, I see what you're saying by sheepish, but if we say the followers that they are following blindly, that's maybe better. In response to Ruby's, theoretically, Ruby, like always, you have a very good idea, excellent, unbelievably good. It's a dream, but practically it's impossible, because what is behind all these chaos, especially in Islamic worlds and Islamic countries, it's the British rulers. The British rulers, they have one fundamental idea and they follow it, and that is dividing, therefore conquer. They are dividing all Muslims, and they have been so successful. They have divided Islam to the Sunnism and Shiism, and they are very successful. In fact, they are #1 supporter of Iranian government, whether anyone wants to acknowledge it or not. More corrupt they are, better off it is for British. So how in the world you're gonna come back and come up with some kind of agenda or proposal to obscure or side aside the British policy. That's the key issue to it, I think.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
May I respond? Okay. I never say that we will unite the Muslim world or Muslim community in the United States or Europe. I never said that, but I'm saying that there are enough intellectuals who can make very progressive statements to be included in this movement. And that should be our objective right now. We can go on many issues, on many things, and that will not achieve a concrete result at this time. I'm saying again and again, this kind of movement is starting, but it is easy to die. There are vested interests who are set in killing this kind of movement. That will be the loss, not only for America, but for the world. And to this movement to continue can bring about substantial change in governance, not only in America, but in other places. But I do believe that if there is a good governance in Washington, there are good governance in many places in the world. That happened under Woodrow Wilson, that happened under FDR, that happened under Kennedy. So there are things that can take place if Washington is. So our objective should be how we can strengthen this movement, not other things. Let's not talk about our faults and our problems. We do have problems. Let's talk about what assets and what potential we have. Can we utilize that even from a small group of Muslims coming up with a very progressive, concrete ideas and be part of this movement to broaden it, strengthen it, and taking it longer to be effective.
Two quick corrections, Brother Hussein Najafi. One is the plural of sheep is not sheep, sheeps, it is sheep. You know, English is my fifth language too. I do this kind of errors. And the other one, the Sunni Shia division, I think predated British rule. I think you meant that it is again kind of that division is increased, is harped on, is promoted. Perhaps you meant that, but the division existed historically 1400 years ago. Correct. Okay. Anyone or
you know, can I just say about the present movement? This has got a very clear black and white focus of an issue. It is purely based on color, which is very simple to communicate and understand. There's a lot of, a lot of people are behind it because there's a very simple issue at stake. If as Muslims, if Muslims wanted to have some stake in the present movement, why couldn't they simply say they back this movement? They support anti-racism strongly because this is part of their philosophy of religion or whatever. Although you have a credibility issue when there is so much oppression in everywhere that Muslims are ruling, you have a huge credibility issue. Nevertheless, if you wanted to join this movement, then of course you can join forces by simply supporting it. It's very simple.
And can I respond to that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can I respond to that because this is talking about my issue. I did not say that not to join. I'm saying I fully support this movement and we want to be part of this movement. We are part of this movement in writing articles and publishing and all these things. And joining, I'm not there. If I was there, then I would be on the street also. But I'm talking about how to keep this movement alive a long enough time to make a fundamental change, a substantial change. And for that, this specific idea of racism is not going to be sustainable for a long time. I have seen this kind of movements before, maybe not this big. But I'm saying that in order to keep this movement very positive and effective, we need to broaden the base. And I'm not saying today, but we have to aim towards in say 6 months or 3 months, whatever it is. The changes doesn't come so easily because there are enormously powerful elite interests sitting, and they are calculating, they are organized. We are not organized. So we are up against Goliath. So right now, let's focus how to strengthen this movement and keep it alive longer and more effective, so more people come on the street, because racism is only one issue. There are other issues that American people care. Let's bring those issues into this one by one.
I think, Ruby, I think the issues are integrated. Racism is not isolated from economic exploitation. It is not isolated from warmongering, the military-industrial complex. Therefore, if we think that we are able to kind of fix the system by stopping this, it is not. The system whole will again. You know, civil war happened. Supposedly it was won. Martin Luther King right now, it is a holiday, official holiday in the United States. Nothing changed. Therefore, still there may be kind of apparent changes, but it will be superficial. I do really agree with Ruby Ahmetullah. There is system, his economic, political, educational system, even our constitution, which I love it very much, United States Constitution. I studied Constitution. In fact, I debated with Justice Rehnquist, who was the Supreme Court Justice for 33 years and the Chief Justice for 18 years about the Constitution. I took a class from him. I love American Constitution, but American Constitution right now is archaic. It doesn't address major issues. For example, corporations acting like government. For example, amendment protects us from government, but from where? In public square, where public square right now is dominated, is controlled by corporations. No one goes in the middle of the town talk and it doesn't have any. But
Edip,
yes.
Edip, my question is that you are again going off track a little bit. My question is that extreme inequality is, of course, deeply, that's the root cause of racism. But I'm saying how you address that is good governance. And how you address that is you can also bring that issue, extreme inequality. And that has not developed in one day. It's deregulations of 1980s. It is the bad leaders selected, and it is the campaign financing that brought all kinds of vested interest in power. And so we need to talk one by one. If we bring a lot of things in the package, people are going to be confused and people are not going to come on the street. How do we do that? I'm placing that again and again to all your panel. So how we can focus on the issue.
Well, I mean, Ruby, what do you think is the #1 other issue that all Americans and everybody else around the world is going to support right now?
Right now, I think that extreme inequality in income and wealth could be connected immediately, and globally, it is the global brutality the state apparatus are doing, and many times under the patronage of America, under the patronage of China, under the patronage of Russia. So good governance in Washington. I have more hope in Washington than China and Russia. I think if there is a leadership that can come, it can come from Washington. And it is the most influential nation in the world. And I'm not bragging, but I'm saying this is the reality. Let's utilize that to bring diminish or fight injustice. Of course, we are all fighting against injustice. But what is the most effective way of fighting the injustice? Is start someplace, make a progress, and then your horizon broadens. Then you go to other areas. Right now, being part of this movement is going to be very effective. That's what I feel.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Amir, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, hello, my name's Amir. I'm from England, UK, the south of England. And I've been listening to all of your opinions. I think it's very, very interesting. One of the biggest problems that we're facing actually as a species is that we have a bizarre scenario where a lot of racism and things like this are caused by what I would say is well, think about it in these terms. We have human beings who are told to worship Jesus, for instance, a human being who is a man, so that immediately excludes women from, because so if you look at Paul's, in Christianity, you look at Paul's writings, he glorifies men because they are like Jesus, and he demeans women because they are not, if you look at the writing. So there you have sexism. Then you have Jesus, who is essentially portrayed as a white man, who is glorified by white men, and therefore you have a racism to say, look, this person is different to this white man that we worship because he looks like us. Therefore, you have racism, and bizarrely, you even have black people, or I don't like to call people black people, or I think it's a scientifically incorrect term, because no one is black in color. We have different pigmentation in our skin. This is colors. What the Quran says, it talks about variation in your colors. But anyway, you have black people who picked up the Christian religion and worship a white man. Unless you go down to the fundamental reality of almost goes back to God, of understanding that God is neither male nor female, nor black nor white, or anything like that, you're always going to have an injustice. You're always going to have an unequal society, because there'll always be, if you look at idols in the past, every single religion, they worshipped somebody who was similar to, when they depicted their gods, they were similar to them because they anthropomorphized their gods. So you look at like Hindu religion, they're all, a lot of them they have brown skin, they look very much like their people. The same with Christianity, the same with Buddhism, with the Buddha. It's this fundamental error in our thinking is what causes our problems. This is and until you undo that, you're always going to have it. It's always going to be, we are better than you because of this, because we have some resemblance to our idol. Does that make sense, or am I just?
Thank you very much, Amir. Let's move around.
Can I also participate?
Edip, I have to go right now.
Okay.
I'm sorry to say, it's an interesting discussion, and I would like to say salam to everybody.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I want to really finish up this one. Yes.
Can I participate?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's limit it with 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the audience other than Edip. So I'm from living in Arizona right now. So I'm a project manager, engineering background. I just want to say, first of all, thanks for putting this group together. It's a good conversations. Just my take on is maybe they give the messages is everything comes up in a one summary. So there is an elite, as you talked about the 1%. They have all the monies, but they have concern about the control. So they control the politics, they control the economy, they control the education, they control the medical system and everything, and they control the media. So there's a lot of propaganda coming from the elite, and that's dividing the people by itself. I am awake for a long time, so thanks for it too. I got awake for the religion portion, but there is for the politics and everything else is also is part of it. So what we should do is make awareness about about what the truth is, what should be right, how we should be thinking. So even our children are getting poisoned by the education system with the racism and everything else. But even if you cannot control your children's how they think, because of all these incorrect information is coming from the education system, but you have to give them what's right and what's wrong, and what the principle, what's in the Quran. So we are equal. We have one God, and we should be working for the peace. So just a summary.
Thank you very much. Anyone else before closing? Go ahead, Altai. Would you like to? Altai. Yeah.
All right, there's no much time left. Are we going to go ahead, or are you closing?
Let's do a little bit more. We exceeded the time that I expected. It's right now 15 minutes more than 1 hour. Go ahead, and I hope that your practice, you are not talking in English, therefore your don't feel uncomfortable. Talk. We don't have a high expectation, and I know everyone have.
Thank you.
In terms of talk, because English is my fifth language. I tell people, don't expect me to be very fluent. My pronunciation is horrible, and for you, I want to lower the expectation. You live, yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, the matter is not my English, but how much time is left?
I think you intend to talk too long. Let's leave it for other times.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Maybe 15.
Oh my gosh, that is too long. Let's see. Others, what do you think, people? Do we have time for that long?
Go on, I would say.
Okay, let's see. And maybe there are few short talks between, maybe there are people may would like to say a few words, Altai, and then after them, I will give you talk about 10 minutes, okay?
All right, let people talk.
Yeah, let's see if there are people will have a few words, statements make before you talk. Anyone? Gulnar, do you have anything to add or to object? We have different people here. We can have very different ideas. Therefore, feel free to express yourself.
Kerem is asking to speak.
Kerem, okay. Kerem, oh, I'm so sorry. Did I turn people mute? I'm so sorry. No, as unmute. Okay, it is. Go ahead, Kerem.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, hello from Switzerland here. I'm a software engineer, working as a software engineer in Switzerland, graduated in mathematics. And I'm a president of a Muslim organization called Ar-Rahman mit Vernunft und Hingabe. It basically says Ar-Rahman with reasoning and devotion. So, and this question of sustaining a movement is really a difficult one, in my opinion, because I read into a doctoral thesis about it, where Muslim but non-conservative groups were studied and how successful they are and what the success factors can be. And there are 3 factors involved in this, and 2 factors which are really important, which is difficult for our movement, as I understand it right now, is proximity. It's to be physically close and not just virtually close. So in sustaining a movement, you should be close to each other. And it also says that you have to be at most 1 hour away from the group. So you can drive or whatever, walk and go by bus and so on. So you can meet easily together. Okay, we have Zoom, but it's a different dynamic. So this is one thing, one factor we have to consider when we want to keep doing this. And the second thing is we have to Ruby talked about this. We have to have a strong base, and to have a strong base means that people should be comfortable working with each other. They should be somehow like-minded. I mean, we are somehow like-minded, but in some topics we would be thinking differently. And it introduces some more dynamics, and it is difficult to handle these dynamics. And it happened in Denmark or in some other countries too, that Muslim groups who were non-conservative wanted to be active in human rights issues. They fell apart because of that. So these are just the two basic factors. The third one is not that important for us, I guess. And I wanted to raise the question, how are we going to challenge these two factors? Because I also experienced it myself, that it is much easier that if we can stay close together, maybe with Zoom we can manage it, but I don't know. Maybe. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, you are right. If this kind of virtual meetings not supported by maybe a conference, maybe biennial or even at least annual conference, if people do not meet each other in person, it seems kind of less impact. But I think we may be evolving towards embracing this form of meetings. With time, I think this may change. This may be the old way coming together. This one, we may get used to more than before. Therefore, I am not seeing this as the major obstacle. But the other thing that we have so many different ideas because we are not leaving our brain by the door when we enter this group or mosque. We are individually thinkers and we have our differences. And therefore, for a religious group or nationalist group, it is easy to come together around or just one word, one stupid motion, and then everyone just follow like sheep. And I will use the word sheep. I don't mind really. I'm not politician. I'm not to go run for politics. Even I say majority of people sheep, no one should get offended. If gets offended, deserve to be called sheep because I said some people, majority of people are sheep. You should not be in the majority of those groups. Anyway, therefore, I take back. As far as we have different ideas. We have people coming up with some very marginal ideas. But I think here, I would like to find common denominator much more universal than marginal ideas. Something that will unite almost all humanity, 99% of humanity. Therefore, within that, how can we find a common denominator for 99%? Then come on, leave your speculations or your personal ideas or belief on the side. Okay, that's fine, but it's for you. How can we, all humans, 99% come into agreement? I think that time it becomes clear, the movement. It is what? We need to have equality in this world. Inequality causes us major problem. We need to eliminate racism. It causes so many harms, wars, and pain for humanity. We need to also give up from division based on religions. We need to have a just and peace world. It's so clear. Therefore, all the dogmas, leave it for yourself, for your tribe, for your group. Let's come common denominator to have a better world.
Edip,
yes, go ahead.
Edip,
Yes.
I have a small, really, let's think to this. Today, there is no group that defends Muslims injustice. I mean, if Muslims are blamed falsely, there is nobody who will say there is something wrong there. And so you want to make a movement with huge number of followers, but I think with the type of people who are here, I mean intellectual people who have some education, some thinking capacity, I think there is our job in being such a thinker thinker people group, we must not look to have huge amount of followers, but we must unite us to remove the biggest injustices against Muslims. And that will solve many problems, because today there is nothing to defend that. Nothing.
Thank you. I'll type if anyone else. Okay. Are you okay?
Can you answer? Can you give your opinion on this?
I do think that the Muslim population, which makes up around close to a 2 billion population, they are, I disagree theologically with their theology, absolutely, with some of their practices, but I think they are very wrongfully declared to be terrorists or evil. Majority of them no different than Hindus in terms of persons. They are human beings. And there are, of course, extremists among them, but they are far fewer compared to the population. Therefore, labeling them and targeting them and promoting hostile policies against them is wrong, and I am doing that. But I think still we can have this one, and I think that we need to foster much better brotherhood, sisterhood among all humans. I'm really tired from Muslim versus Christian, Hindus versus this, Turk versus Kurd, or British versus this. And I think this will not lead us anywhere. It is within. If we solve this, we eliminate the borders that divide us, and this one will be solved too at the same time. And therefore, I think peace, promoting global peace, and creating an international, not international, transnational global movement, and uniting with other like-minded people, I think it will solve the rest of the problems too. We need to unite as people against the governments which are hijacked and cannot be local. And I think the more local we go, we will still be divided, and we'll still not be able to do anything, because it is the nature, the way they divide us. Yes, Altay. Go ahead.
All right. All right. First of all, let me tell you that Edip invited me to this gathering to discuss a new and better Turkish constitution.
No, not this one. It is next week. It is in Turkish.
All right.
This is the English one is different. It is next.
The English one is different.
Sunday morning. Okay, this is different.
All right. Nevertheless, let me tell you an old Chinese tale. Let me start with it. There was a small village many centuries ago in China. And near that village, there was a mountain. And in that mountain, in a big cave, there lived a dragon. And that dragon looted the village. Up and down, it came down and wanted food. And also good girls, beautiful girls, or young children. And it took them and went away. And that was the way that village was living. And up and down again, a young boy appears, and he says, I want to fight that dragon. I want to kill it. It has no right to come here and loot us and kill us. So I take my sword and go to the mountain, and I will kill it. So many young people went to the mountain that way, but as you can know, no one came back. And after a while, again, another young man appeared, and he also said, this time I want to kill that dragon, and I'm sure I will succeed. But the villagers tried to stop him. They said, you know, before you, many people went there, but nobody came back. So don't try it. You will lose your life in vain and nothing's gonna happen. Please don't do that. But he said, I'm a brave man. I cannot live like this. I cannot get looted, get oppressed. I want to go to the mountain and kill that dragon. Okay, they said, do what you like. So he took his sword and he took his food and went to the mountain. And after a small search, he found the cave the dragon was living in. He entered there and unsheathed his sword. And he went in carefully. And after a while, he encountered the dragon. He was very brave. He started to fight with him. Sallamak neydi? Edip yardım et. Kılıcını sallamış. Ha burada Türkler de var. Biriniz yardım etsin. Duymuyorum. Aç. Mikrofonu aç. Mikrofonu aç.
Okay.
Strike this word. Strike.
Yeah.
He stroke.
Yeah,
He struck with the sword. All right. And he killed the dragon. And he said, hooray, I killed him. And he wanted to search the big cave. And he found big treasuries, gold and silver. And also big bones, very big bones. And he said to himself, well, these big bones don't seem to be human bones, but that dragon took many people with him and it ate them. So where are the human bones? These bones are big bones. And there, all of a sudden, something started to happen. He saw that coarse hairs were growing out of his body and out of his hands. He saw his hands starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger and change to dragon's hands. And he was so afraid he wanted to shout. But there was no human shout coming out of his throat, but it was the dragon's voice, a roar coming out of his throat because he himself turned to a dragon. So the topic of this tale is in 2002, we elected a government and we expected many positive things from it. And we sent these people, these parliamentaries, these politicians to Ankara, to our capital, to organize a better government and do good things for us. But exactly the opposite happened. So we sent young people to kill a dragon in Ankara, but they themselves turned to a dragon. You know, this is the Chinese tale. This is the Chinese wisdom, let me say. So I'm expecting for new young guys who can go to the cave, kill the dragon, but they themselves don't turn into a dragon. Okay? Let this be my speech for this night now.
I love it. Thank you very much. I think it is very interesting thing, but I would think that when in 2002, when AKP moved against the dragon in Ankara, they didn't have universal values. It was all about them to save themselves alone from dragon. It was very selfish. It was not universal. And I do think when people do not have universal principles and values, when they want freedom only for themselves, when they scream because they are hurt, when they come into power, most likely they will repeat the injustices, because it was their fight against oppression and corruption. It was not based on high value. It was based on only their selfish self-interest. And therefore, I do think in order for us to save ourselves from this fate in this fable, we need to start with this, that I'm not only asking freedom for myself, I ask freedom for my enemies too. And I ask justice for my enemies too. And I want peace for all of us. And therefore, when we have these universal values really digested and prove it through our life and positions, I think we will not be turned to dragons, but still there will be some people we don't know their intentions. We cannot guarantee. And we always should be scared of being turned to a dragon. And thank you very much. I think this was a beautiful reminder that power corrupts and we should be always aware of it. Therefore, I think, anyway, I should not continue longer. Thank you very much, people. And hopefully we'll come together more. And I think ultimately we have something promising going on. We'll connect to other groups too. That's the purpose, not remain this way, but different groups. And then hopefully we'll have a global movement for peace and justice. Thank you very much. And I'm going to post it on YouTube so that the later comers, we can refer them to the first talks. And hopefully this will remain a very fruitful, inshallah. Take care.